It's a story with a headline so shocking and sad, you have to read it twice to believe what police are alleging. This 7-year-old boy is dead. He allegedly weighed 255 pounds. Now his parents are charged with murder after the boy was found unresponsive in their home. The newly released police report that details what allegedly happened on the day that young boy was found living in conditions that police say were so horrific they, quote, cannot be accurately described in words. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. 5 pounds. Let's face it, that is a weight that's considered heavy by adult standards. But a 7-year-old, you just continue to ask yourself, how is that even possible? The average weight, by the way, for a 7-year-old boy, it should be between 50 and 55 pounds. 7-year-old Casper O'Brien, though, should be known for so much more than just the way that he died and his weight at the time that he died, which has made this such a national story. There's no question that 7-year-old Casper faced a lot of challenges in his life from the moment he was born. He was diagnosed with autism, his family says, and they also say that he was nonverbal. But his obituary, and this is important, it says that Casper was a bright, loving young boy whose joyful spirit touched everyone around him. An important thing to note with that obituary is that it also reads that he is survived by his parents, Jessica and Damien. And the context there is the obituary was written shortly after Casper passed away on November 4th, 2025. And there is a lot that has changed since then because Jessica and Damien are now accused of killing young Casper. You may have already seen the headlines in this story, certainly that number, 255 pounds, and the questions about how that was even possible. But the police report that we have that I'm about to share with you gives details that make this story so much more difficult because I'll tell you what allegedly Casper's parents said when police arrived at the house and what their alleged excuses were for not just the state of the home, but the health of their 7-year-old son.
It's across Italian Corona for a 7-year-old male, 7, not breathing. Sounds like they're getting CPR started. E26 en route from downtown.
Police were called on that day in November in the morning to a house in Genesee Township, Michigan, specifically Flint Township. And as you read through this police document, you find that officers really had a hard time finding the words to accurately describe what they reportedly saw inside. So we found the call from November 4th in Genesee County that sent officers to the home of the O'Briens. Now, inside the house, Casper was not breathing. Police write that they get to the home just before 9 in the morning, and Jessica O'Brien said that Casper had been breathing that morning around 8:30, but then 15 minutes later, she went to check on him, and he was no longer breathing, so she called 911. One of the first officers who entered the home writes, quote, I observed extreme hoarding conditions. There was trash on the floor throughout the residence. It was so extreme, I could not tell if there was carpet or wood floors. Police, and I noticed this as you read through, it's a 16-page police report. And each narrative from the, I think about 5 officers who write what they encountered that day, they really had a hard time finding the words to describe what they experienced when they went into this house. There's one officer who writes, quote, the residence was absolutely disgusting and can't be accurately described in words. Another officer said, upon entering through the front door, I observed the living room completely covered in trash, including numerous stacked garbage bags. Then in the summary of one statement by an officer, they write, quote, the residence was overwhelmingly cluttered and unsanitary with large amounts of trash and poop throughout, which emitted an overbearing and foul odor. Furthermore, there were abundant insects throughout the entirety of the residence. This home was a mess, and that is putting it lightly. And inside, as they work their way through the trash, police say, they encounter Casper O'Brien, this young boy who was unresponsive. They were allegedly doing CPR on him, Casper's family members, specifically his uncle. But police end up rushing Casper to the hospital, and he is pronounced dead before noon on that day. And according to the local medical examiner, Casper's cause of death was dilated cardiomyopathy. So I looked that up. I'm obviously not a doctor, but the National Institutes of Health says that it is heart disease and it's associated with people who struggle with obesity. And to my understanding, your heart enlarges and it's almost stretched too thin to be able to pump blood effectively. Casper's heart, it was just too weak to continue working. Now, police end up speaking to both Jessica and Damian O'Brien separately, and based on what's been alleged, you hear a lot of excuses for the state of the home and the health of their son. They have a 5-year-old daughter also, by the way, who was found inside the house, and police allege that her fingernails were dirty and her hair was knotted and tangled, and she also had a bad cough, which police were concerned about her health. And when you think of everything that was potentially in the air with the descriptions we're getting from inside the house, that is a major concern. The story that the O'Briens give about Casper's day-to-day is nothing short of heartbreaking. Jessica told investigators that Casper was mobile, but she also said he spent 12 hours a day in his bed. So let's face it, he was bedridden for most of the day. His mother told police that Casper's diet consisted of a daily large bag of potato chips, a large French fry, carbonated sugar water that's called ice, and apple juice. Jessica O'Brien also said that all Casper wanted to do was eat because of an undiagnosed eating disorder. Now remember, Casper's only 7 years old and he's nonverbal. Now police say he had not seen a doctor in 2 years, and they allege that Jessica never really made an effort to take Casper to a doctor, but they also say, and this is important when you think of how the criminal case could play out, they allege that she could have. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that factors into all of this in a moment. Now, Casper reportedly didn't bathe for approximately 6 months. His dad said he would allegedly clean him with wipes roughly 3 times a week, and he said that Casper didn't like water, but they did have a working shower. So there's another example of something that could have been done, and the resources were there to do it, but they didn't, according to police. What police say they found when they examined Casper's body at the hospital is really disturbing, so I'm going to give you a warning of that before we get into it. Police say that the bag that Casper was in after he was pronounced dead had a concerning smell, but it was not the smell of a body decomposing, but, quote, poor hygiene and filth and possible infection. Quote, Casper appeared to not have been bathed for an extended period of time. Dirt, dead skin, and unknown buildup was observed all over Casper's body. Casper had long hair that appeared extremely dirty and began to dreadlock in several areas, indicating that it had not been brushed in a long time. Casper's fingernails were very long, unkempt, and filthy. Upon examining Casper's skin folds and armpits, the officer writes, I observed redness and open sores that appeared to be infected with redness and swelling around the affected areas. It also says, quote, I observed some of the worst open sores and rashes I have ever personally witnessed. Casper's disposable brief diaper was soiled with dry feces and urine. Upon removing Casper's brief, he had deep red rashes with open sores to both of the backside of his legs, thighs, and buttock that also appear infected with redness and swelling around the affected areas. Now, these injuries and Casper's alleged conditions, these do not happen overnight. I want to show you this picture here. This is on Jessica O'Brien's Facebook page that we found, and it's a picture from 2022. It's unclear how things got so bad in this house, allegedly, as you just take a look at Casper there. Obviously a big kid, but again, at the time he passed away, we were talking about 255 pounds, according to police. Now, as far as Damian O'Brien, the dad, is concerned, he told police that his son, he thought, weighed 170 pounds, which, look, that would still be huge for a 7-year-old. But again, 255 is the number that police say he weighed at the time that he died. There's one other thing that I really noticed in the narrative that's been laid out by police, and it's that Jessica O'Brien told them that one of the family dogs had a stroke the night before Casper died, and she got up that morning to make a vet appointment. Think about that. Her dog allegedly has a health issue. So the first thing she does, call the doctor for that dog. And yet her son hadn't seen a doctor in roughly 2 years. Police say she didn't even know who Casper's pediatrician was. This was a boy who had serious medical issues. Jessica and her husband, though, apparently they went to the doctor plenty. Court records state that Jessica said that she and Damian would go to the doctor regularly, and her most recent appointment was the month before her son died. On top of that, she says that Damian's job, which was working in IT, it came with good health benefits with a copay of just $20. Now, when asked why she did not take her nonverbal autistic son to a doctor, police say inconvenience was the reason. She didn't like the fact that she would have to go and wait in a waiting room for a long time, then see a doctor, and then after 5 minutes, the doctor would say her son was okay. She also told police that she had a distrust of doctors because she claimed she was sexually assaulted by a doctor. Now, look, I am not one to deny whether anything like that ever happened. And it is certainly unclear if that is the truth. But even if it is the truth, remember, she saw a doctor just the month before her son died. Casper died in November. And for months, the investigation continued. And then on June 23rd, police arrested Jessica and Damian O'Brien. Police say that Damian did not speak to police and he asked for a lawyer when they went to arrest him at their home. As far as Jessica, she did speak to investigators. Police say in an interrogation, they showed her pictures of Casper's body, and Jessica allegedly claimed that the sores on Casper's backside were only there for a month. They note that originally she claimed that they were only there for a couple of days. She then said that she had no idea that Casper had rashes on his body. Now, this family allegedly claims that they had given Casper some sort of bath with wipes. Well, not really a bath, but they would clean his body with wipes multiple times a week. But then Jessica said that Casper didn't like being wiped, so she only wiped his body quickly. And, quote, Jessica stated it wasn't as much wiping as she would have liked. Now, police then pushed back on Jessica saying that she was unaware of the health issues that her son was having. Quote, I then asked Jessica, did you ever think of how much pain Casper was in? Jessica replied, quote, no, and I probably should have. I then asked Jessica, why do you say that? Jessica replied, just seeing this now, I didn't know it was this bad. I didn't know it was that bad. I was so in my depression that it just. I then summarized that Casper hadn't received a bath or shower in over 6 months, only white baths 2 to 3 times a week. I then summarized medical opinions from medical records. I then asked Jessica, how mobile was Casper? Jessica stated Casper was still mobile, but he would lay in bed for approximately 12 hours a day. Jessica was then asked if her and Damian ever discussed their concerns for Casper's medical state and the condition that he was in. Jessica stated, quote, no, we were falling apart at that point. His drinking had gotten really, really bad, and we weren't really communicating, and I was basically taking care of the kids on my own. She alleges that Damian has a drinking problem. On top of that, she allegedly admitted that financially, they were in good shape because Damian makes decent money, and they both get prescription drugs to help control their diabetes. So you're seeing their conditions are being handled inside the home, but allegedly their son, who weighed 255 pounds at the age of 7, who was autistic and nonverbal, he did not get medical care, according to police. Casper also did not go to school, so he was out of the view of adults who may have been able to help before it was too late. Casper's parents said that they wanted him to attend a school for children on the spectrum, though it is unclear whether any steps were actually taken to make that happen. Michigan prosecutors don't see what happened to Casper, though, as just an act of child abuse or neglect, even though allegedly it certainly is that. They are calling this murder. Jessica and Damian are charged with